Have you ever wondered why we humans have such contrasting thoughts and actions? Some are good, some are bad. In the Buddhist world, we often hear about the Ten Dharma Realms, which are 10 realms that each of us can cultivate to reach. However, the most important thing is not those realms, but our thoughts, because thoughts can lead us to any realm. Buddha taught that everything originates from a single thought. If a person always thinks about the benefit of sentient beings, he will become a bodhisattva. But if he only thinks about personal benefit, he will fall into the realm of demons. Therefore, thoughts are the key to deciding the realm you will reach. Imagine a scene. You are in the middle of the vast ocean. Your boat is stuck in a storm, and around you are hundreds of people in need of help. What will you do? Would you only think about your own safety, or would you do everything to save others, even if it means putting yourself in danger? And that is the difference between a bodhisattva and a person who only cares about personal gain. To understand better, please join me in delving into this story in today's video. Bodhisattvas are people who practice Buddhism, not to achieve salvation for themselves, but to help sentient beings, to save all those who are suffering. They are the embodiment of compassion and unconditional sacrifice. What makes bodhisattvas special is their boundless compassion. No matter what the circumstances, they always find ways to help those around them, regardless of the subject, status, or situation. They do not worry about their own safety, but always put the interests of others first. The story of the boat at sea. Imagine you are on a lifeboat, and around you are many people who need to be saved. An ordinary person might only care about saving themselves first, but a bodhisattva will jump into action, regardless of his own safety, always trying to save everyone. I think the story of the bodhisattva can be an extremely valuable lesson for us in our daily lives. Compassion is not just a lofty ideal, but a practical action in every situation. Sometimes in life, we can easily get caught up in our own concerns, forgetting that the people around us are also in trouble. However, when we think of the bodhisattva, we will realize that nothing is too difficult to do if we have compassion and sacrifice. Helping others is not a responsibility, but a privilege, because when we help others, we also help ourselves become better people, full of compassion and kindness. Buddhism is not a doctrine to practice and pray for oneself, but to act for the benefit of all people. I believe that each of us can become a bodhisattva in this life, not necessarily in a high position in Buddhism, but as long as we act with an open heart. Besides bodhisattva, Buddhism also mentions an opposite image, which is those who only care about personal interests and can even do bad things and deceit to achieve their goals. They are like ghosts in spiritual life, always looking for ways to manipulate others to satisfy personal desires. The obvious difference here is, bodhisattvas sacrifice themselves to save others, while ghosts only think about their own interests and do not hesitate to harm others. A bodhisattva is never afraid of danger because they have overcome their ego. They live for the peace of all living beings, while ghosts only seek to satisfy their own desires. In fact, every action of a bodhisattva is a valuable lesson that we can apply to our daily lives. Whether it is at work, in relationships, or in difficult situations, always putting the interests of others first is the way to help us live a more meaningful and happier life. In Buddhism, there is an important concept that each of us needs to understand: the 3 poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. These are the 3 main causes of suffering, confusion, and ignorance. When we cannot control greed, anger, and ignorance, we are trapped in an endless cycle of suffering. But how can we overcome these 3 poisons and open up a brighter path? In my personal opinion, in this modern life full of temptations, keeping a peaceful mind is not easy. We are often caught up in greed, wanting to have everything without thinking about the consequences, or easily hurt by the words and actions of others. It is at times like this that we forget the true nature of all things, and the world around us becomes dim and dark. Therefore, when Buddha taught about liberation from ignorance, I think it is not only intellectual understanding, but also a deep awareness of oneself and the world around. Wisdom is not just the ability to learn knowledge, but also the understanding of the nature of all things and phenomena in life. When we practice wisdom, we will know how to distinguish right from wrong, good from evil, and understand what is truly important. Wisdom is like a flashlight that illuminates, helping us see the path, overcoming the confusion and darkness in life. For me, wisdom is not just an abstract concept, but a practical tool that helps me face all challenges in life. Every time I encounter difficulties, I ask myself, am I being blinded by negative emotions such as greed, anger, and ignorance? And only when I can clarify these questions for myself do I feel like I have truly stepped out of the darkness. So how can we achieve this clear wisdom? The Buddha taught that the first step is to be aware of the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance, and learn to control them. We need to learn to let go of meaningless desires, accept the difficulties in life, and look at everything with a peaceful heart. Then wisdom will gradually appear and help us understand ourselves and the world around us better. How can we cut off ignorance and escape from the cycle of birth and death? Is the answer simple or complicated? Precepts are rules and regulations that practitioners must follow to maintain the purity of body, speech, and mind. It helps us stay away from bad actions and bad karma, creating a healthy life. However, in today's modern life, keeping precepts can sometimes be difficult. We have to face many challenges and temptations. But the important thing is how to maintain self-awareness in every action and thought. And this not only helps us do good things, but also brings peace of mind. Concentration is the ability to concentrate and control the mind, helping practitioners not to be distracted and to be able to clearly contemplate the truth. Through meditation and practice, we can achieve peace and the ability to perceive the truth. I think that in modern society, with so many conditions and temptations around, maintaining concentration becomes more difficult than ever. But only when we can practice diligently, the mind will gradually become clear and calm. Every time I practice meditation, a sense of peace gradually fills me and makes me realize that tranquility is the key to liberation from worries and troubles in life. Wisdom in Buddhism. Wisdom is wisdom, the ability to understand the nature of phenomena, helping us realize that all things are impermanent and suffering is caused by attachment to temporary things. When we have wisdom, we will no longer be deluded and will achieve liberation. Wisdom is not the ordinary understanding that we learn from books or life experiences. It is a kind of profound wisdom that can only be obtained when we dare to face the truth, clearly perceive life and death. When I understood that everything is impermanent, I felt much lighter. Accepting this truth is an important step in the journey of liberation. The three elements of precepts, concentration, and wisdom. So, how can we escape ignorance and the cycle of birth and death? The Buddha taught that the three elements of precepts, concentration, and wisdom are the path that helps us overcome the sufferings of life. No matter who you are or what circumstances you live in, these three elements can still be applied to bring peace and happiness to yourself. An example of this path is that of a young student. One day, he went up the mountain to find a good monk to study. After meeting the monk did not teach him any scriptures or dharma, but only told him to meditate. After 3 days, the student could not bear it and ran down the mountain. At this time, the monk said, When you cannot keep calm in difficult situations, you cannot begin to learn Buddhism. This story reminds us that wisdom is not something that can be learned overnight, but must be practiced and verified. Among the Buddhist teachings, the Four Noble Truths are one of the most important teachings. The Four Noble Truths include the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering. These teachings are not just abstract concepts, but practical instructions for people to be freed from suffering in life. The Buddha taught that the cause of all suffering in life is not external, but rather kien hok, wrong perception, and tu hok, wrong thoughts. These views and thoughts make us see the world incorrectly, leading to wrong actions and creating bad karma. Therefore, to solve this problem, we must practice according to the 37 Bodhipakkha factors, a system of virtues and methods to purify the mind, increase wisdom, and eliminate defilements. By applying these virtues, we will gradually eliminate views and thoughts, gain wisdom, and be free from all suffering. When practiced correctly, we can attain the fruit of arhat, which means no longer subject to the cycle of birth and death, no longer subject to the suffering caused by ignorance. This is the path to complete liberation, where all worries, sorrows, and frustrations no longer exist. An example of the Four Noble Truths might be a person facing great suffering, such as the loss of a loved one or a failure in their career. Such suffering comes from false views, that is, the person perceives the world around them in a distorted way, believing that suffering is inevitable or insurmountable. For example, when a loved one dies, they may feel as if they have nothing left, overwhelmed by sadness and unable to move on. However, if the person realizes the impermanent nature of life, that everything arises, passes away, and nothing lasts forever, the pain will no longer have any power over them. Correctly recognizing the impermanence and temporary nature of things helps the person accept reality, thereby overcoming the pain and continuing to live peacefully. This is how the noble truths of the threefold path and the noble truth of the cessation of suffering are applied to real life, helping us to escape from the struggle of the mind towards liberation and peace. The important thing in the journey of learning is that we must practice the noble truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This path is not an easy one, but it is the only path that can help us to break the cycle of birth and death. It is the path of precepts, concentration, and wisdom. First, we must observe the precepts to protect our souls from negative influences, then train our minds with concentration, helping our minds to always be peaceful and alert. Finally, we must develop wisdom, to clearly perceive the nature of life and liberate ourselves from all suffering. One of the core things that the Buddha wanted to emphasize is that all suffering can be resolved when we change the way we perceive and think about life. When we clearly understand that suffering is just a part of the natural cycle of life, not something that cannot be avoided, we will gradually be freed from its control. The Buddha taught that views and thoughts are the roots of all suffering, and the way to destroy them is through the practice of the noble truths. When a person has attained clear wisdom, he will no longer be hurt by the temporary things of life and will no longer be controlled by delusion. When we practice this path correctly, we not only help ourselves to be free from suffering, but also help those around us. Practicing the Four Noble Truths is not only to achieve peace for ourselves, but also to be able to spread love and wisdom to others. Thus, the Four Noble Truths are not just a theory, but a practical method to help us live a meaningful life, overcome suffering, and achieve true happiness. Everyone has the right to choose their own path in life. We can choose the path of goodness, the path of bodhisattva, or choose the path of evil, the path of demons. The important thing is that you must realize that every action, word, and thought of yours has a direct impact on the outcome of your life. If you want to reach the realm of Buddha, you need to develop wisdom, keep your mind pure, and always aim to help others. Remember, one thought of enlightenment is one thought of Buddha. As long as you have one thought of enlightenment, you are already a Buddha. Finally, remember, everything depends on you. Create good deeds and stay away from evil so that you can achieve the fruit you desire in this life. Because as Buddha taught, as you sow, so shall you reap. The choice is yours. The 10 Dharma Realms are not just a concept in Buddhism, but a guide for each of us in developing our mind and practicing. Think about what you have learned and apply it to your daily life to gradually move closer to enlightenment. Always remember, everything starts with a single thought.